Michael Owen, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
I was looking at your life now, and it includes punditry. People will know that, I'm sure, because they see you. A management company where you represent some younger players. You've got sponsors. You've got the horse racing business, physiotherapy business, 4 kids, and latterly being a jockey and trying not to fall off a horse. So that's busy.
You've done some good research. Yeah, I didn't know I had that much going on in my life, and then and people ask me if I'm going to go into management as well at some point, which is a no-go with all those things in my life, as you say.
What's your main thing there?
My main thing, I think, obviously raising 4 kids is pretty special. I think my main work is within football, looking after or advising some of the, hopefully, next generation of players is very exciting. And I love my television work as well. And then when I get time, apart from doing all that, then there's nothing better than going down to my stables and running the rule over all our horses and meeting all the owners and things like that. It's football and racing probably take most of my life.
Yeah, and working with the younger players trying to make a breakthrough in the game, is the hope that in 5-10 years time you'll have players who are elite Premier League players in that stable? Yeah,
that's the theory. It's very hard nowadays to break through the ranks as a footballer. Much harder than when I was coming through. So to give mainly parents in many ways as well, but also the lads a little bit of advice on how to do it, what to do, when to do it, and of course work with the clubs as well. It's not an agency, so to speak. It's more of a management company that works with the club. So we tend to stick to the Northwest, where there's obviously some superpowers of football, and try to, as I say, work with the clubs, with the lads to hopefully make that breakthrough, which is, as I say, becoming even harder nowadays.
Yeah, no doubt. I saw you racing. I'm sure a lot of people did recently for the first time at Ascot, I think, was where you made your debut. And I thought, this is a guy who's missing the buzz.
Yeah.
This is a guy chasing some adrenaline.
He's getting desperate. No, it was when I retired, I thought, I started putting on a few pounds, and I thought, I've got to do something, get off my backside and do something. And of course there's the charity aspect, so I ended up running the London Marathon, which is coincidentally this time of the year. And then a couple of years on, I thought, I'm getting itchy feet again. I've got a new challenge to do, and we thought long and hard about what to do, and someone suggested, well, why don't you ride a horse? And as much as I've been in the industry for a long time and know plenty about it, I've never sat on a horse in my life. Obviously, being a footballer, we were never allowed to. So I thought, well, that's quite a good challenge. I had to lose £22 in 40 days. I lost nothing in the first 20 days because I didn't really try, and then I thought, right, this is getting serious now. And I literally never sat on a horse in my life. I had to learn in 40 days intensive training how to ride. I still really don't know how to ride, day to day how most people would.
Okay.
But I obviously know how to ride jockey style. So it was a huge challenge, and again raised quite a lot of money for a variety of charities, but the saddle is firmly put in the cupboard now, and I won't be getting back on.
Oh, is that right? I was going to ask if it sparked off a new love affair for you, but not really.
Well, the love affair with racing remains, and I've got a newfound appreciation of what jockeys do and what riders in general up and down the country do in
but
the
you won't
riding
get in the
stables.
gallops every weekday.
But I've not sat on a horse since I crossed the line, and I probably won't. Listen, I'll probably put on another 2 stone and think, right, you need to lose some weight, and I need a challenge or need to. But at the minute, it was just a something for charity, and also it gave me a lot of pleasure.
Right. Okay. So you did enjoy it.
Yeah.
Not to make us all feel old, but I mean, it is. I'm sure lots of people are saying this to you at the moment. It's suddenly 20 years since World Cup '98.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to say now, but there's younger listeners and viewers who don't really remember it, which is kind of the terrible thing. Do you remember that month well?
I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, the terrible thing is some people don't remember it. Some people weren't even born when I scored it. Some of these lads that we just referred to that I'm mentoring, let's say, at the moment, half of them weren't even born when I scored that goal, which is quite scary.
Keeps your ego in check.
It does, yeah. Yeah. I do remember. I remember the World Cup being a really hard tournament in terms of very little fun We weren't allowed to see families. We didn't have mobile phones back in those days, which is another extraordinary
or box
thing.
sets or internet. It was a slower time to occupy.
We were sat in the hotels. The manager wouldn't let, the Glenn Hoddle at the time, wouldn't let us have newspapers or do anything. So we were literally sat in the hotel all day, every day, training once a day, but no contact with home, no nothing. So it was quite hard, being away for, well, what is the pre-tournament, sort of 2 or 3 weeks, and then the tournament itself. So I remember that, thinking I'm missing home, but this is so important, so much fun being obviously in the England squad, and I just loved the football, the buzz, the training at the time. So I mean, the whole tournament was a great experience, but I remember it being almost like you were in prison for most of it.
Yeah, and I mean, you were 18. Obviously, you just burst on the scene in a huge way. Tunisia, I think you come on, and then there's the Romania game. You get that goal, and I guess Argentina is where you make your name. Can you even explain those few moments where you go from a very promising superstar within England to kind of globally making your name? The goal, I guess.
Yeah, it was strange because I didn't expect it. Shearer Sheringham was the combination that took us through Euro '96. Yeah, but apart from those players, you're looking at the most astounding group of centre forwards. Your Ian Wrights, your Robbie Fowlers, Andy Coles, Les Ferdinands.
Lots of them couldn't get near the squad, and they were scoring 25 goals a year.
And that's the amazing thing about nowadays. You score 10 goals in the Premier League and you're English, and you're probably in the squad.
Yeah.
We had players that were scoring 30 goals in a season and couldn't get near the squad. It was astounding, the quality. So to break that Shearer Sheringham, or to go past the rest of them, and to break the Shearer Sheringham partnership was quite something. But I went to the World Cup expecting to be an impact player, I must admit.
I saw your interview with Stan Collymore actually recently, and Hoddle did say that to you in La Manga.
Yeah, he says you're not going for the ride.
You'll be involved. That's a great thing to hear.
It is, but of course, being greedy, then I don't want to just be involved. I want to be starting every game. I want to be playing 90 minutes. I want to be captain. I want to be taking the penalties. If you haven't got that attitude, then you'll never survive. Did
you, in hindsight, have a really, and I mean in a good way, a real arrogance about you because you'd literally been the best player in the country right the way through the age grades? I mean, you were the main man.
Absolutely, you can't do anything. You can't get to the top of any profession, or get into an England team or something without having an inflated opinion of yourself, which is very hard to say and very hard to look back and think, cool, that's how I felt about other people. When I crossed that line, I didn't even know the opponent. We were playing Argentina. I'd heard of Batistuta because he was great, but I didn't have a clue. I didn't study that they will be worried about me. Right. Was the sort of type of attitude. It's a horrible thing. It is really hard, and I would never sort of recommend it on people because it turns you into a bit of a monster.
Yeah.
And then you've got to form back into normal life as well when you're off the pitch. So you live in two separate lives, but unless you think you're the bee's knees, let's say in a polite way, then you will never be able to run at someone and treat them with disdain and disrespect and anything else. You'd say, well, you have the ball, mate. It's you've got to look at them as if you're better than them. Otherwise, as I say, you wouldn't even challenge them.
And the goal against Argentina, which again any younger viewers can quickly YouTube. I mean, that entire goal from the first touch to spin the first man behind you and the way you ran it, I think it was Ayala, that is dripping with disdain. That is just aggressive. I'm going for the heart of everyone in front of me here. That's what that is.
But I knew no different. And the beauty of being a kid is that, and being in my situation as well, because, putting it into sort of perspective, as you mentioned, at 14, I was breaking every record for England. At 15, the same. 16, I played at every level, broke virtually every record. So it wasn't like I was, a new kid on the block. My career was a ball of flames early on and fizzled. As opposed to some other players, they take time and they're better when they're 30 and 32 and they last longer. I retired at 33. So I was all about exploding onto the scene. I'd never had any failure. As I say, I'd scored in every game, every debut I ever played. Why would this be? And I'm talking about this as my mindset back then. Why would this be any different?
Yeah.
I don't need to know who I'm playing against. Just give me the ball. That's all you need to do. was obviously my mindset, and unfortunately that mindset changes over time, because when you're a bit older, you have a couple of injuries, you're a bit slower, you start thinking, am I as quick as him? Am I as strong as I'll play on the left centre half because the other one's a bit better? And you start worrying, and I'd never been like that all my life, and that's when panic stations start, and you just think, and that's when you don't enjoy football, and you're almost happy to retire in the end, because you're just not the player that you were.
There's so much interesting stuff in that. To finish on the Argentina goal then for a second, when you spin the first man and you turn around and you see one left, you just think, this is made, like, I can't be stopped here. Is that what goes through your mind, or is it instinct, or is it...
Yeah, when I took my first touch, then of course scoring a goal was not on my mind. It was trying to wriggle free and penetrate their defence, really. I'd just run at them and 5 minutes earlier and burst past them and got brought down for a penalty, so I knew they were pretty scared. And obviously Ayala's position, about 40 yards behind everyone else, probably just was the giveaway that he was scared of me running in behind him. But as soon as I took my first touch and lifted my head, then I thought, this is he's got no chance.
He was too deep.
He was too deep, and I had a head of steam, and I mean, as it was, I was quick, but I didn't even need to be fast to be able to build up a head of steam to run past him. And of course, taking your next touch is all about giving yourself the best chance to score. So of course, anybody can take a touch way to the right, but you're going to give yourself a bad angle, and so it's taking it not close enough so he can tackle you, not far enough away so you're going to make the chance hard. So of course the touch was the important thing, to then present the best possible chance of the finish, and obviously all went fine.
Did you know Paul Scholes was trying to sneak in?
I caught him in the corner of my eye late on, but he was I think I nipped him just in front of him, but by that time my momentum was going, and obviously I was confident.
I saw you say in that same interview that you did recently with Stan Collymore that I think when your parents said to you under the stand after the match, because obviously the tournament's over so you can see family again, that maybe, kid, your life has probably changed even more than we realise. And I suppose it had in many ways. You never seemed to go off the rails. You never seemed to be pictured smoking, drinking. I mean, you either had an incredibly mature head on you and genuinely did avoid all the trappings, or you had very good people around you who maybe kept the press away at the right times and let you live life a little bit. Which was it? Yeah,
definitely an older head on my shoulders. Right. And it's not right, it's not wrong. I almost have lived my life the opposite way around, because I'm not necessarily an angel. I'll have a drink with the best of them, I'll stay up till 5 with the best, but nowadays, when I retired, it was almost like I was doing things now, or doing things then, as soon as I retired for the last few years, and my mates are like, just go to bed, you're wanting to stay out, and you want to go out, and you want to do this, and you want to do, and I've lived my life, I've missed all that, and I'm almost thinking, this is great. Well, they've grown out of that, they're mature now, and I'm almost living that a bit now, what I missed out on. Whether that be going the races and everyone else goes home and come on, let's go into town after, and 5 o'clock later you're still in town.
And do you regret, I mean, I guess it's the right thing to do on paper to postpone the kind of wilder years, or the more fun-loving years. Do you regret not doing some of it earlier, or do you think it was the right thing to do?
Oh, not at all. I didn't even think twice about wanting to do it back then.
Football was just so clearly the priority.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't... it wasn't like I was having to suppress an appetite to get out there, and I wasn't feeling either that I was missing out, because all my mates were out in town partying and doing what they're doing, and I didn't feel as if I was missing out. It was just a given. My mates wouldn't even think about asking me out at night, or it was just,
this is the way it is.
This is the way it is. This is my life, and I'm not home often, and I'm not this, and I do that, and I go to bed at a certain time, and I eat this, and so I can't come out for dinner because I've got to eat this, and it was all about, the next game. And then once you score a hat-trick and you think, oh no, there's another game in 3 days, I've got to be bang on again, otherwise people will say the hat-trick was a fluke or he's losing it. So it was just relentless.
Yeah. So the appetite, you weren't having to quench the appetite to do it. It never even entered your head. That's very interesting. The other thing you said there was you got to almost manage this parallel life where you're a huge ego and you think you're the bee's knees, and then return to normal life and be just one of your family and just a normal fella around the table having a cup of tea with friends. Did that ever get out of kilter? It must have been hard at times when you were genuine, real Ballon d'Or territory and just scoring goals for fun. It must have been difficult to just be a normal fella at times.
Yeah, it is, but it's not. Listen, I'd lived a normal life. My mum and dad had no money. We were, we lived on an estate. I, had to fight my way through to have certain things. So I was a normal kid. The problem is people treat you
like a king everywhere you go. I'd say it was.
So, you even come home and your brother sort of looks at. I came home from the World Cup and one of my brothers almost looked at me a little bit funny. I just thought,
I'm still Michael Owen.
Exactly,
yeah.
And people treat you very differently because you can kick a bag of air around well.
We have our perspective off, don't we? In society.
We're all normal people.
Did you? That I would hate that. I would hate to come home and my brother to think, God, you're different now.
Yeah, it was strange, but I'm not. I'm talking about everyone. Everybody, apart from your mum, your dad, and probably your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Most people look at you different and treat you different and say different things, and you want people to laugh at you and take the mick out of you, just like they used to. So. Can
you feel a bit detached then from society?
Yeah,
kind of lonely?
You can, and you can understand why then footballers will almost be matey with each other, and they will act a little bit different or be a little bit different to other people, and so. I feel as if I've conformed back into normal life, and I think if that's the right phrase. But I also feel as if I could live two lives. I could play up to the star attraction. Let's say I could cope with the pressure. I could sign 1 million autographs and do the fame thing. But I could also then, to get to Liverpool from my house, you have to go through the Mersey Tunnel. As soon as I get through the tunnel, I used to feel, right, now I'm out the city, I'm out my job now, and now I'm a normal lad again with my mates, with my family and all the rest. But as I say, it's the biggest problem for most footballers, and the biggest reason they change, let's say, is because of how people act towards and not how they are.
That's very interesting. I could imagine it's very difficult to make genuine new friends outside of football.
Oh well, I've got one mate. I've got a lot of people that, my brother's mates and a few people that I know and whatever, but I've got one mate, and that was the hardest thing. That you can't really. I mean, my mate now and my wife and my family are all laugh at me saying, you now talk to more people. I used to sit in the corners. I used to go, even if I went racing or something, I'd sit in the corner and I'd be. If anyone used to come up to me, I would be very guarded and sort of short with them in a way, not on purpose.
Yeah.
And now they laugh at me saying, I'll talk to anybody. I go around and I'm very, very sociable. I think I'm naturally sociable, but I couldn't be.
I totally understand it. I mean, how could you not be suspicious of anyone coming up to talk to 23-year-old Michael Owen? I mean, they have an agenda. They're not like kids. They
don't like you, do they? Necessarily, they don't know you.
Brand.
They don't know you. So it's always important to be nice and to have a photo.
Sure.
But from their point of view, that's what they just want to say hello or have an autograph or have a photo.
They want to go and tell their mates they talk to you.
Exactly, and for me, how can I sort of have a normal conversation? Hello, mate. How many kids have you got? Where'd you go on holiday? I can't have because they don't want that. They just it's a strange relationship.
What's Gaza really like? That's what
exactly. They ask questions that are just treating you like something else, which is it's natural, but it's very hard for you living it to distinguish.
I can imagine. I can see how then you hang out with your football mates who aren't as impressed with the fact you can kick a football.
And these football mates aren't necessarily your mates.
No, do you keep in touch with many?
A few, yeah. I work with a few, and it's like any other industry. You meet colleagues along the way. You're probably really matey with 5 or 6 that you've met along the way. another 100 or 200 you'd say, oh, I liked him and he's a colleague, and then you'd say another half a dozen you probably didn't get on with. And that's just like any walk of life.
There's two other things I wanted to touch on, if you don't mind. So Real Madrid was very interesting. I know it was just 1 year, but I saw you say as well in a piece here on the Telegraph a while back when Gareth Bale was moving, that the one question every player you played with subsequently asks is, not what was it like with England or what was it like here or there, it's what was it like at Madrid. It just has this thing everyone wants to know, and you went at the time when it was Zidane and Figo and Raúl and Beckham and Roberto Carlos. The Galactico thing was in full bloom. In that same piece for the Telegraph, you talked as well, and it's really interesting that we don't think of the human side too often, but that year in Madrid, so much of it is you and your wife and a very young child in a hotel, and it's bloody miserable.
Oh,
miserable.
If only people knew. As you say, the human side, people just naturally look at you, and listen, we all judge. I can watch you on the television now and think, and just from what you say, I've got no other background information on you. I can only judge on what you say, how you're saying it, whether you see him a nice fella or whether I don't know. So you can only judge on what is in front of you, whether it's an article you've read or how you're playing, or whether you smile when you're kicking the ball in the goal or whatever. But I can tell you, the normal, the day-to-day life, you see me for 90 minutes on a football pitch. Well, how many hours apart from that are you living your normal life? It is, Madrid was such a hard challenge for family reasons. Naively, I wasn't that good at geography back in the day. I was thinking, right, Spain, it's hot weather, there'll be palm trees, there'll be a beach, I didn't know there was the highest capital city in Spain. It gets blooming cold it's in the middle, so there's no, it's a business, it's a city, it's a beautiful city, but it's a city. So, living in a hotel, me playing in the Champions League, in La Liga, I'm away twice a week, no matter what. Then we have to stay in a hotel the day before each game. So I'm from 9 o'clock, so we train in the morning, then I'm off in a hotel all the day before, then all the day after of the day of the game. Every game in Madrid is a night game for television reasons, or it was back when I was. So for 4 days solid, I wouldn't be at home.
And your wife's in a
and
hotel.
My wife can't drive, on the wrong side of the road, as we call it. She's in a business hotel with not very much around, and she's having to occupy in a room. Fine, it's a nice enough room, but in a hotel, eating the same food off the menu, not knowing it, no friends, no car, no nothing. So, and here's me on the 3 days that I'm not working hard, is your training, and then Ronaldo says, should we go for 9 holes of golf? And I'm, oh God, I want to be mates with, I need to sort of, but I know my wife is crying in the hotel waiting for me to come home, and when I drive around the corner, my daughter's only 2, she's screaming, Daddy's back home. And so I wanted to make it nice for my family, but I knew my wife and daughter were really struggling, and I wanted to be part of the team. And so 6 months later into the season, I'm still in the bloody hotel, and then I can eventually I find a house for the last sort of 3 months. But by that time, the damage was done, and my wife was adamant we had to go home.
Had to go, yeah. It was very tough to play your best stuff. Your record was pretty good in the end for that team with those players. 41 appearances, you still scored 18 goals, 15 starts. So you were actually doing pretty well. But even if you finished training at midday or 2 o'clock, and you might think about staying on and doing some shooting practice, I would presume your wife is calling you saying, get the hell back to this hotel room and take the kid for a while.
Exactly. That's exactly how it was. Restaurants don't open till 9, 10 o'clock over there. So, we were 7 o'clock at night, the lights off and the television on mute, and daughter going to sleep, and me and my wife just waiting for 2 or 3 hours until we got tired to drop off. It was, you couldn't go out for dinner, you couldn't make friends, we didn't have anyone out there to look after our daughter. So, 7 o'clock, as I say, lights off, and we're just lying there for a few hours until we drop off. It was hard, and until you get your own house, it was really hard. But as you say, the football side of things was great. I scored a load of goals. I found it really much easier than the Premier League. Of course, we're in possession all the time. We were the best team.
You're probably got everyone.
4 or 5 hard games a year. So, it was quite easy. It was quite slow build up, and then we had the best players. We'd score loads of goals.
Yeah.
You couldn't fail but score a few.
I can imagine, because I wondered from afar if that was a dysfunctional dressing room in some ways, the Galactico culture, if it ever got out of control. It always felt like the manager was a lame duck.
Well, I had 3 managers in my one season.
So they were all lame ducks.
They
really
were
then.
all, yeah.
So that's a strange dynamic where the dressing room really is running the place.
Yeah, and I mean, the president bought me, so I know that. You know that going in there, does the manager? You always question, does the manager fancy me to start with? Because you know the president's bought you, and he assembles most of the squad. So that was strange. In terms of the dressing room, it's like any other dressing room. You get groups here, groups there. I don't care how much team bonding you do and all the rest of it. You're always going to have some friends more so than others. There's always a pecking order. So there was a Spanishy group. The Raúls, the Salgados, the Gutis, players like that. And then, of course, Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos being Brazilian. There was another little group. So, I mean, there was no problems in there. It was absolutely fine. But, of course, some huge names in there.
Yeah, it's surreal. Who stood out in particular? I mean, there was so many phenomenal players. Was there anyone that you kind of came away thinking, God, that is very special?
Well, as a player, I was... taken aback by Zidane.
Right.
He was just off the scale in terms of ability, and not anything that he would do. It's not like he would go and blast a ball in from 30 yards in the top corner every time. But you just pass him the ball, and the way he takes a ball, the way it's almost like it's just on a string. The ball is on a string when he plays. It's always within a certain area, a certain distance of him. When he runs, it's almost like it's part of his body. It was just... And if you pass him the ball and he wanted to turn on a certain angle, he could just manipulate a ball and do it all in one movement, just amazingly well. Yeah. Strong, quick off the mark. You tried to get near him and his arm would come out and he'd just push you away and burst out. He was 10 yards away from you. He was really, really good. Top class. As a lad, I mean, as friends go, Figo was a cracking fella, but Ronaldo, the real Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo... He was one of a kind. He just wanted to play golf with me all the time and take my money. And yeah, he was
pretty tough to turn down golf with Ronaldo all the same. That is a what could have been moment. It's funny. I asked a few people. Anything? Michael Owen's coming in this week. Anything you want to hear him talk about? The number one thing was the move to Man United. Has that soured things for you with Liverpool fans? To like, you see, Twitter's no judge of anything. So no. I see the 200 maniacs on Twitter all the time. How has that gone down, do you feel, with Liverpool fans?
Well, of course it is what it is. There's always going to be some people disappointed. I can only look at it. I've got to live it.
Yeah.
People can flippantly say, "Oh, you're this or you're that," and then get on with their life, which is fine. But that comment or that feeling sort of sticks with me, doesn't it? So I've got to live that. All I can comfort myself with, I suppose, is that when I first set out, I got told Real Madrid want you, and I was and ahhing, and I thought, I've just got to try it.
Yeah.
I've got to try it.
That's a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'd be sitting there now saying I could have gone to Real Madrid. So I thought, I'll do what Rushy did. He went to Juventus for a year, came back, and I thought I'll just go and sample it, and I'd love to come back, and that's what eventually I decided. I cried all the way to the airport. I didn't want to go necessarily, but I just thought, I've got to try this new experience, language, food, weather, league, playing in that white kit, new stadium. It's a life experience. So, but I can comfort myself with, as soon as I knew I was coming back, it was on the phone to Rafa Benitez. We met, we did this, we did that, we agreed. Liverpool said they'd pay X amount. Then Newcastle came into the party and just offered 6 million more than Liverpool, and Liverpool couldn't budge. And fair enough, they'd sold me for 8 and they would go to 10 as it was. So Real Madrid said you're either staying here or you're going to Newcastle, to put it to put it blunt, and Liverpool couldn't budge. So I had no option either to stay at Madrid or go to Newcastle. My wife was desperate to go home, so we decided. But then in the Newcastle contract, we did things in there because, of course, they knew that I wanted to go to Liverpool, that I could have gone to Liverpool in different summers, or I could have left the club, let's say, for agreed fees. So at every point, the first year, then I do my knee in the World Cup, so I can't go back to Liverpool. The next year, speak again to the manager. We don't really need you. Torres is here. Next year, don't really need you. Suarez is here. All fine, they're brilliant players. So, time moves on. I'm not bitter. I'm not bothered in that way. That is life. They didn't need a goal scorer. They had one. So that was that. At every juncture, I tried to get back. We all wanted it to happen. Chairman, managers. I shook hands with Rafa Benitez and we thought we were there, and then obviously the Newcastle deal came in, so that I couldn't, as I say, I couldn't get out of, because the Real Madrid had my contract. They told me that I had to go there. So, and then again when I finished at Newcastle, Liverpool weren't in need. Suarez was there at the time, so I had to look at my options. I could have gone to one or two clubs, but nothing of the calibre of Manchester United. And of course I sat there thinking, this is going to ruin a lot of what I've done in some people's eyes. But then again, Michael, you're not too old. You're going to be playing in the Champions League. You're going to be at the top of your game still. You might as well just retire. If you're going to say no to Manchester United, you might as well just, this is a great club with players that I played with for years and years with England, great lads, under a manager that was really successful. Yeah. I know people don't understand. They have the badge and they'll always, and I'd be the same. They're supporters of a football club, but when it's your career, if I offered you the top job at a great, you might be at the top job. Don't get me wrong, but people are always going to try to get better. If you work at Asda and Tesco's are down the road and they offer you more money and a better living condition, people do it. What's the difference between football and any other walk of life? I'm trying to be the best player I can be in a short period of time, and I would have walked to Liverpool any time, and they know that, and everyone knows that, bar a few idiots, as you say, on Twitter. But in general, I did all I could, and I can't do any more, and circumstances just meant that I couldn't ever go back. So
it's interesting. Finally, you used the word, I comfort myself with that knowledge. So there is a degree of upset that maybe it's tainted the relationship a touch, that you kind of comfort yourself with that knowledge.
When I go back to Anfield and one or two people booed me, I mean, it was like a dagger in my heart for what I did for the club and how I felt about it, and I was still feeling, all my parents were obviously upset in the players' lounge after. It was the first time I went back with Newcastle, and that I can either continue to get upset with that all my life, or I can just resonate with it, or use it in my mind, or have a reason why and how and what. And as I say, the comforting factor for me is I know what happened at every stage, and probably a lot of people don't, and that's very hard as well, because when I'm still playing for Newcastle for 4 years and Manchester United for 4 years and Stoke for 3 years and Stoke for 1 year, I can't come out and say in front of Newcastle fans, I'm here, but I was desperate to go back to Liverpool.
So
I've got to be professional, and I'm taking stick left, right and centre from Liverpool fans, but I've got to get on with my career as well, and it never happened. Now I'm going to try 100% for who I'm playing for, and that's just what everyone would expect me to do. So it was almost a no-win situation, but I don't regret anything, because, as I say, my intentions were there when I first set out to go to Real Madrid, and it just didn't happen after that. My career took me in a different path. Unfortunately, I could never get back, despite my efforts and the club's efforts, and it's as simple as that. As you say, for the rest of it, for the odd minority that give me stick for it, well, it's easy for them to flippantly give me stick, but obviously it hurts me when it does happen, considering what I did.
I've kept you over time. That was fascinating. Brilliant. Really interesting. Thanks so much for coming in.
No problem. Great to meet you.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that latest offering from Off the Ball. If you want to subscribe, and you should, check out just up here. All our latest stuff is just down here. Generally, knock yourself out.